Look at you. Oh, look at you. You're looking more and more like Dick Cavett or and what's the other guy's name? David Letterman.
Oh,
You look
David
like
Letterman.
you like David Letterman and Dick Cavett's son with hair and darker hair and a beard. Very distinguished. Very
Oh,
good.
see, when you said David Letterman, I thought you were putting me down.
No,
No.
no, David Letterman with hair because of his beard, but
Oh,
much.
I got you.
I says, but you have your own look, but it looks very good, very, very impressive.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, you look like something out of London in the turn of the century, 1900s. Something out of a Dickens novel.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
You should do an accent,
Well,
an English accent.
I don't know how good my English accent is.
Why wouldn't it be good? You're Paul Leslie. This is the Paul Leslie hour. It should be very good, son. Or more like an Orson Welles accent you should do.
I could
There
do.
shall be no wine before it's time.
There should be no wine before it's time.
Yes, nice. You should try it with that. You should play with that, Paul. Oh, look at you. What are you imbibing?
That would be a little bit of scotch.
You're a Scotch boy, are you?
Sometimes.
Is Leslie Scotch? What is Leslie, by the way? I don't even know.
Well, that's an interesting thing because Leslie is commonly thought of as a Scottish name, but in our case, we were Liesel, which is German. We became Leslie because it wasn't a good idea to be to have a German last name.
Really?
Yeah, when my great grandparents came over, so they
See, now my uncle changed his name from Rulli to Rulle, so he would sound more German to be able to be in the finance world, because Italians weren't accepted into finance at the time.
It's interesting that
Yeah.
this societal trend.
Yes, it is very interesting. All right, my brother, let's rock and roll, baby.
Okay.
Are you here? Is that a rhetorical question? Well, I now say, this is the Paul Leslie Hour. Yes! This is episode number 1039. Would you believe we're welcoming back singer, actor, director Robert Davi? This is his fourth time joining us, and he's going to talk about America's ultimate election. In fact, we're now only 3 days away from Election Day 2024. Did you vote? There's still time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to kindly, gently, humbly ask for your subscription to this show. Oh yeah, and be sure to share it with everyone you know. Won't you please? And with that, it is time for the always interesting Robert Davi.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is my fourth time speaking with Robert Davi. 4 times. That's right. We're going to be talking about some things relating to the 2024 election. My observation, it seems like the Kamala Harris campaign began with this joy or so-called joy, and they're ending on hate. That's just my perspective. But I was hoping you could weigh in about the way the Kamala Harris campaign is ending as we are just a few days from the election.
Yes, well, I guess you have to say, besides beginning on joy, it began on on an internal democratic coup started by George Clooney, who I'm sure was tasked by Obama to write an op-ed for the New York Times to shoot the first bow, the first missile from the bow of the ship of the Democratic Party, because they needed someone of that stature to entertain the public and get the attention, the hair on the back of the dog's fur, so to speak, up all over the political process. And then it was then honed in over those few days as they were all trying to do whatever they could to get Joe Biden to acquiesce to Obama and Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democratic Party that were in a panic. And once that was established, instead of having a primary of some sort, they then ordained Kamala Harris. Now, in 2018, Paul, there was a documentary called The Black Godfather. I don't know if you've seen it,
No.
but people should see it. It's a very good documentary. It was produced by a woman named Nicole Avant. Nicole Avant is married to the head of Netflix. Nicole Avant was the first woman, or the first person, shall I say, to bring Obama to Hollywood and have a fundraiser for him. She then was, of course, given the ambassadorship of Nassau or Jamaica. I forget which one, but interesting, Nassau or Jamaica. And in this documentary, The Black Godfather, it's about her father, Nicole Avant's father, Clarence Avant, who was a great man in the Black community. He was trained by a Jewish agent in the 1930s, who was the agent of Duke Armstrong, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and the great artists of those jazz artists of the day. And he was trained by him, this young Black boy, and he became a major force in music and the biggest influencer in the Black community. Was an amazing figure. He died recently. But this Black Godfather was a great documentary, and everyone paid homage to him. The Jamie Foxxes, anyone in the Black community, sports or in entertainment, film, paid homage to him, or politics. Now, in this documentary from 2018 or so, Bill Clinton shows up, and of course, President Obama. Then, surprising to me, a woman named Kamala Harris shows up. And I thought to myself, well, who is she and why is she in here? So interesting that she's in this documentary. And I texted friends of mine. I said, Kamala Harris has been ordained. She's a player in the 2020 elections. They said, no way. She's just been the DA in California, the Attorney General. She hasn't had anyone that knew, Anyway, when she was then primaried and didn't get any votes at all, it was a disaster. Then she was picked for vice president. And then now, president. So she was ordained in some way, perhaps by Obama. There are rumors, stories that have been told to me by waiters that are actors that work in catering, and that Democratic fundraisers, they walked into a room. This is before she was even vice president. They walked into a room where Obama and Kamala Harris were in the room together. And this is not in a public room. It was a little side room, smaller rooms. I don't know what that inferred, but it was told to me by someone in Hollywood that was friends with this actor. Now, it's a hearsay, so who knows? But I doubt if anybody would make it up, and I'm not one to make up anything like that. But everyone exposes every little innuendo and every little thing. So I just want to put it out there for people to understand. So she then now, as we talked about this, George Clooney firing the first shot and then picked up by the rest of the Democratic Party, her and Tim Walz having their first meeting together, rally together, and the absolute skipping joy they both exuded in their campaign. It was wonderful. It was like watching a pageant of elementary school kids skipping around the room, leading the rest of the elementary school kids to cheers, probably scratching their head, why are we cheering? Then they said joy, and I said, that's so curious. They're now branding this as joy. There was the rebranding of Kamala Harris, who hadn't done anything as a vice president that I know of. I know she was tasked with being the border czar. That's what was said over and over again. But the media lies. The media lies to you, my dear friends. The media is in the tank. The media, industrial complex. Shame on them. But anyway, I digress, Paul. So what happens is we have Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and Joy. So I was curious. It struck me odd, the rebranding of Kamala Harris, knowing how in the tank, first off, she comes from Hollywood. She comes from California. I lived there 46 years, my dear friends. 46 years. I was brought there, as you know, Paul, by Frank Sinatra when I did my first film with him. So I've been around the rosemary bush many times, so to speak. I know what's there. It's a wonderful town. People are great. I don't mean to denigrate anyone in Hollywood. They're all wonderfully creative people, but I think in a lot of ways misguided, or because they can't be that clueless of what's happening with the working man and the, regular John Does out there. So you have this, and I researched Joy. I said, oh, Joy, let me see. Where was Joy used? It's so strange. And I came upon a Wikipedia post, Strength Through Joy. Interesting. It turned out that term was used by the Nazi Party in 1934. And then I tweeted that out. And of course, I then wrote the article, Joy Mala, and everything else in the cackling joy, and how Hollywood rebrands someone, and how when Hollywood has a director that they want to use, and the director isn't really equipped, he's not really qualified, they put people around him to protect him and insulate him from failure. And especially if someone is if it's nepotism. Anyway, it's good. Nobody wants to fail. And you want to have people around you that have. But here is something that was shocking to me, this Joy. And what I found, and the day Trump announced in 2015, coming down the escalator, I've written for Breitbart since 2009, many articles and other places. But I mentioned in 2015, when he came down the escalator, that he was going to win and why. And subsequently, you can read those articles on Breitbart, dated. Now, Joy. I've watched the rallies of Donald Trump. I've watched him go through hell. He's been the most maligned figure in American history. Staggering how maligned he's been. But curious, and I watch him. And do you know something, Paul, Leslie? I never saw him really lose his cool.
Yeah.
He could get passionate and passionate, but I never saw him lose his cool. But Miss Joy, I saw, and I says, oh my God, talk about joy through strength. That was Hitlering. That was fascism. That kind of absolute left-wing agitation. That comes from the left, my dear friends. I don't see anyone on the right or in conservative movements doing that. But I see that kind of agitation. And now we have the new group of celebrities that it went from joy to absolute outrage and anger to now tears. You've got to vote for Kamala Harris. You've got to do this. You've got to save democracy, which is another fallacy of the left and the media that every time Trump does something or says something or someone says something, the misinterpretation of it all. And people are hip to it. Thank God for Elon Musk. Thank God for Elon Musk. For at least, because before this, when X was Dorsey's playground and the rest, we could not see any of what we're seeing now. I just hope that the public and those undecideds out there, because it's very easy to appeal to a base, but it's difficult to move the undecided, especially when they're getting misinformation.
Yeah. Well, with your permission, I would like to play the video from X of you making those statements about joy and that connection that you had made.
Oh, sure.
Watch.
Good day, my dear fellow Americans. I want to bring attention to something. I don't know if you know it, or some of you know it, or any of you know it, but it's something that I recently found out, as a matter of fact, about an hour ago. How many of you knew that Nazi Germany, the slogan that they used in German, was called Strength Through Joy? You hear what I'm saying? Strength through joy was a Nazi slogan from 1933 all the way through the whole World War II. Think about that. Read about it. I'm giving you the wiki post that says some information about it. Strength through joy, the Democratic Party's slogan. Enjoy, watch, figure it out, research, spread, tell the people, tell the common people on the ground what the Democrats have accused Trump and MAGA of is what they're doing. You understand? Wake the people up.
Another observation that I'm having, Mr. Davi, and it's just occurring to me now with the final days here of this campaign. The other thing that they kept repeating again and again and again is we're not going back. And I've been thinking about this, and I would love to get your perspectives on it. And I know that my viewers and listeners would like it too. We're not going back. Yet there's this alignment with Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. So what are they saying we're not going back to? Are we not, like, we're not going back, but they're going back to Cheney, and it seems like there's this appetite for war. What do you make of this? We're not going back. There was joy, and we're not going back.
It's a slogan. It's a slogan from the left. It's a Marxist communist slogan, the way forward, all those buzzwords that they use. It's an agit propaganda. And what it's leading to is the idea of, which they've misnamed abortion since Roe versus Wade. And it's using that buzzword for women, to have women thinking that their rights are going to be taken away, that blacks' rights are going to be taken away, that Hispanic rights are going to be taken away, that it's okay for illegal immigrants to pour into the nation. It's okay to have a baby at 9 months on the table and the doctor can just ignore it and abort it for whatever reasons. And look, that's all a personal choice. It's all a very volatile choice. But I reckon back to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They had paradise and they were told one thing: do not eat from the tree of knowledge. And of course, we know a woman, Eve, as the Bible says, put in front of Adam, come on, have a bite. And instead of Adam protecting his female and saying, we were told not to, I'm not going to bite from that, and you shouldn't either, put it back. Men have to protect women. And since that moment, not protecting women, even in terms of their choices and telling them hard things about human life, and men also respecting a woman's body. That's what it should be more about. Respecting a woman's body. And I've been in my youth, been guilty of sensuality and sexuality and wanting to do all of that. But what it should be about is understanding that union between a man and a woman can create life and was made to create life. And reproductive means to reproduce, to create life, not to take it away. So the whole, we're not going back. Yeah, we're not going back to the Garden of Eden. We're not going back. We're not going back to whatever it might be that she's talking about, or the buzzwords. Again, I don't care if anyone's transgendered or who. I've been in entertainment my whole life. That's someone's personal choice. But let's not make it. Let it be accepted, but not promoted. This year, it's being promoted. It's being branded and promoted as something cool and hip, and kids are confused about it all.
Yeah.
Men and women, the natural order of things. We're not going back. So it has a long-reaching proponent to it, I think, not just the present cool buzzword, but it's nice because the uneducated and the left can go, yeah, we're not going to go back now. My body, my choice. When it's something like that, if you're not going to go back and you're going to go forward, you have to then go on the science of today. And the science of today says that when an egg is fertilized by the sperm, there's a burst of light. let there be light. We see that. You're not going back, but you're not going forward. At the same time, we know that the DNA of any child that a woman has, it's not her DNA, it's a separate DNA. And that DNA, whether the child is born or aborted, stays with the woman the rest of her life and helps heal her when she's in times of illness. So what are we not going back to? Let's come up with a different idea and taking it out of the federal government and making it states' rights. There's nothing wrong with that. Let it, eventually it works itself out. What Trump did was almost a spiritual act. What they did, the Supreme Court justices, in terms of saying to them, wait a second, we shouldn't be melding in people's lives. What they're doing now, they're saying parents can't do certain things. You mean to tell me if a child that is underage wants to do something, the parents don't have to be notified? We're not going back. It's a frightening phrase. Think about. We're not going back to what?
Right. It's empty. Very quickly, do you think that we are going to get the results of this election on election night? What is your gut telling you?
My gut telling me is that they've on purpose made our corruptible elections. If they wanted to do this, they could easily do it. And both sides have probably been misusing our election process for decades upon decades. I know for a fact through my good friend Frank Sinatra with John Kennedy. John Kennedy was losing to Nixon. And Joe Kennedy said, hey, he's losing. We need some more votes over here. And Frank had to call Sam Giancana, who then called the union, and they found votes. Think about that. So we know back then, and we know, look at, in 2008, the Chinese hacked the campaigns of McCain and Obama. We don't know it. We don't talk about it. I've met people. I met a gentleman from Puerto Rico who was Puerto Rican, 50 years old, was in the military. But when he was 14 years old, he and his friends were paid by the Democrats in Brooklyn to go and fill out ballots in a basement. The guy's 50 now. This is when he was 14. So there are stories about this. But we're supposed to say, don't, can't do that. No, because our process is pure. Everywhere else is corrupt, but we're pure. And now you've gotten certain anecdotal things that we're finding today that's happening. Now, I understand that. I understand there's going to be but if you had an ID and you had a paper ballot and you had to go in there and you had to do it could be done differently. But anyway, it's what it is. It's what it is, my dear friends.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see.
So, I don't think we'll know.
Yeah.
Unless it's a huge blowout, which we can all pray for.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a tenuous bit of time.
You know, before we went on, you said something about me being, you said you look somewhat Charles Dickensesque.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what's kind of funny. Right before I switched on the mic, I said to myself, a tale of two campaigns. It's like you read my mind or something, or you somehow picked.
Yeah. Well, you would be there because look at you. You have absolutely that kind of throwback. I could see you, George Bernard Shaw, questioning someone back in the day. You know, you look very, very. You should be in a period piece. Someone should cast you in a period piece. You would have been in. What is that? What was that Scorsese film that Daniel Day-Lewis was in?
Oh yeah.
It wasn't A Room with a View. It was something. It was a picture like that. A period piece. Great piece. America, turn of the century. Yes, it wasn't The Gangs of New York. It was something else.
No. The Age of Innocence.
Yeah, you'd be perfect in that.
Well,
perfect in that age of it. Or you'd be in one of these historical things where you have captains of industry and some of these other characters where they show you the story. This guy is the one that started whatever business at the turn of the century, the 1850s or 70s or 1910. Great. It's a great look.
If I just knew how to act.
That look at that's an easy thing to do. You're protected, just like Kamala.
Well,
You know, she's
I know that you taught Bob Dylan a few things about acting, so you just never know.
he did say that. He did say that when we worked together.
That's such a cool thing. I would put that on a business card. I want everybody to follow Robert Davi on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's one of my favorite accounts to follow, and it's at Robert John Davi, Davi, at Robert John Davi. Mr. Davi, thank you
Paul.
so
and they
much.
can subscribe to me too now. They can subscribe and get some other information, and I'm going to do some, different material. But since I've been, what do they say, blacklisted in Hollywood, so
Yeah.
hopefully X will provide me some kind of appeasement.
Well, I can say I'm sorry that you've been blacklisted by Hollywood, but I'm glad that you're on our coast now, and it's always a pleasure. I feel a real kinship with you, and I have for years and years. I've interviewed many, many people, but it's a very different feeling. Saluti.
Hey, Chandan, I'll give you the toast. I think you saw my show once. I think
Twice.
Twice you got my show. Yeah, Paul. The toast normally was Chandani,
Yeah.
right? 100 years. And then Sinatra would say, Chandan and has the best for 500 years, and the last voice I want you is to hear mine, Sinatra would say. But when I went to Sicily, they told me I did that. I lifted my glass of wine and I said, Chandan. And all of a sudden they just backed up, put their glass down. I looked around and go, what's wrong? Robert, no Chandan, no more Chandan, no Chandan. I go, huh? He says, 73, 84, 92. And they were telling me 74, 75, 85, 93. They were too close to 100. So
Right.
They said the new toast, Paul, if I had a glass in hand, I give it to you, senza fine.
Sante fine, to
Without
infinity.
end.
Without end.
Without
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
So
All right, sir. You have a great night. God bless
You
you. God bless
God
your
bless you.
family.
and you too, give my best to your wife.
Will do. Till next time.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.